ladies and gentlemen, my name's John. I'm from Liverpool. Thank you. Nice to be here. Nice that the BBC have put a show on with an angry Welshman and a Scouser. I think you all know someone somewhere is getting a grant. I bought a new car recently, and I'm not bragging, it's a people carrier. It's just the motor vehicle equivalent of corduroy slacks. So it's like saying to the rest of the world, look, I've give up, to be honest. Just want a bit of space and some comfort now. And I bought this people carrier, and I took it to me dad, because that's what you do now. Getting a new car is the modern equivalent of a kill. You get a new car and you take it to your dad and you go, look dad, I've caught a machine. And my dad come out and went, look, Pa John's caught a machine. Well, my dad's different. He's of that different generation. He wants to look at cars in an entirely different way. You know, he wants to look at the engine. So I let him look at the engine, because I would never tell my dad I have no idea what he's looking at. I couldn't tell me dad that. I couldn't tell me dad I don't know anything about cars. That would be like telling me dad I've got a favourite musical. It's just not a conversation a northern son can have with his dad. I couldn't tell him I'm in the RAC. It'd be like telling him I go Morris dancing. It's just not what we do. So he comes out, he's looking at the car, he gets in my car, and that's when he found what's got to be the most ridiculous invention on the planet. He gets in the car, we turn the heater on, and that's when we find in my car we've got two temperature controls. You turn the heater on, and then here in the driver's seat you can set your own temperature, and then there in the passenger seat you can set your own temperature. It's there. You can have a different climate between here and there. How pointless is that? In my car, you can have 19 degrees of difference between here and there. When are you ever going to use that? Unless you're an Eskimo giving an African a lift. And what was worse about it, I got in the car and I drove away from my dad, and I did something that you only ever do once. I poured petrol into a diesel car.
Oh dear. Oh.
You can feel the pink. It's horrible. It's horrible. Because every man in this room knows that pouring petrol into a diesel car is just like pouring gin into a woman. It is, because you know at some point during the evening she's going to break down. And that's what happened. I poured petrol into a diesel car and I drove off, and after about 5 miles it coughed and it spluttered and it broke down. And I was sat there in the driver's seat in my shorts and t-shirt. My wife was sat next to me in her hat and coat. And the dashboard lights were flashing like mad, and because she's a woman, she thinks the dashboard lights are flashing like mad to indicate what's wrong with the car. But because I'm a man, I know what every man in this room knows, that when those dashboard lights flash, they flash in Morse code. And that Morse code saying, you're a knobhead. And it was horrible. If you've ever been in this situation, the car won't move. There's nowhere you can go. There's nowhere you can go. I phoned the RAC, he came out, he said, there's nothing you can do. I've got to take your car away. You've got to get someone to come and give you a lift. Well, in those situations, you only think of one person. So I phoned me dad. That was the worst decision I've ever made in my life. Because me dad turned up when the RAC van was still there. And we know they don't do anything subtle. They turn up in a big bleeding orange van with a big orange light on it so that people in passing planes know you're a dickhead. He turned up, we got out the car, I could see the look of disappointment on his face. He came walking over to me, he looked at me, he said, what happened, son? I'm trying to think of something brilliant and mechanical that I couldn't possibly fix. I couldn't think of anything, and I was okay. because obviously my wife was there, so she decided to help.
No.
Said he poured petrol in a diesel car, didn't you dickhead? And it was like a pain. It was like a pain going into my dad's heart. It was a dagger of disappointment. I could see the pain in his eyes as he looked at me. He said, "You did what?" And I didn't know what to say. I just didn't know what to say. I had nothing to offer as an excuse. I just looked at him and I said, "Well, I've never had a diesel car before, Dad." You know what my dad said? My dad said something that only a dad would say. He just looked at me and said, "Listen, son, you don't have to own a sheep to know what not to put in it."